Hello, happy Thanksgiving. Pastor Carl here. We're going to go on with our ongoing series on Jewish feasts. This feast that I'm going to talk to you about today is most appropriate for Thanksgiving Day because this is another opportunity for the Jewish folks to celebrate another harvest. Now, we have talked about the Feast of First Fruits, the barley harvest. The barley harvest was important because barley was the food source for livestock. You may remember in your Bible the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. There was a lad there who had 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. You can tell the boy was poor because they had to make the bread out of barley. This is normally what you fed the livestock. So, first fruits, the barley. Then we had the next one, which was the Feast of Pentecost or Weeks. And this was the celebration of the wheat harvest. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the grape harvest. The grape harvest, and the feast for that was the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Ingathering. Now, barley and wheat are different from grapes. Grapes have to be harvested almost immediately. When it's time to harvest them, it's time to harvest them now. And so instead of working out in the vineyard for a while, then going back home and coming back the next day, instead of making that trek, the Jewish folks would build a sukkah, which is a Hebrew harvest hut. It's a temporary shelter where they would stay for those days during the harvest, so they didn't have to go back and forth. Now, the harvest of the grapes was very important in ancient Israel because they weren't trying to, they had not got to the point where they were pasteurizing grapes yet, because that was done by Dr. Thomas Welch in the 1800s. He was both a British American Methodist minister and a dentist, and he was the one who pasteurized grapes and gave us grape juice and helping communion for years on. For ancient Israel, it was wine. It was absolutely the production of wine. And if we didn't have any wine, we didn't have anything that was really safe to drink then. The quality of the water was iffy. With the wine, grapes being fermented, it killed a lot of the diseases, and it was one of the safe drinks to drink. So the wine harvest was essential. And when it was time to harvest, it was time to harvest now. We have this parable of Jesus talking about, why are you standing here in the workplace at the first hour, the 9th hour, the 11th hour, and then paying them all a denarius, the same pay for the whole day. You remember that passage. So we have this festival and celebration of the grape harvest. And so that goes on. But how else does it go on? Well, there's the episode with Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. He suddenly encounters Moses, the great lawgiver, and Elijah, the great prophet, because Jesus is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. And Peter pipes up and says, we should build booths. We should build shelters. Let's stay here. Gee, he is using what he has used many, many times before in his life as he's celebrated the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, what does that mean for you and me today? It means, for me at least, it means that we, as followers of Jesus, continue to be ready to work hard and to celebrate that work. Today, we as Americans are celebrating the good things that have happened in our lives and things we're grateful for. Now, right now, I have a 4th grader in my home, and since we're all learning online, I've been learning a lot too. And Mrs. Riddle, I thank you very much for your help. You know, the English who came over didn't have any knowledge of things like turkey. That's a uniquely American, North American bird. Didn't have any turkeys in England. And pumpkin and corn. Those three things helped the first settlers to get through. The other thing I would tell you is that it is a time of thanksgiving. There is that joy, that satisfaction of having the harvest done, even the grape harvest or the barley harvest or the wheat harvest, and having that sense of satisfaction. There is a time, and this is a good day, to look at the satisfaction you have. Now, this is maybe one of the most unique Thanksgivings that any of us have ever experienced in our lives. We can't be with family and friends the way we would normally do that. But this is a time when we can reflect on the good things we do have. That there are things that, even though they're not the way they used to be, God is still with us. And even if we're in a time that feels very temporary, kind of sounds like Sukkah, kind of sounds like the Hebrew harvest hut, this time of ingathering. And maybe the greatest ingathering will be when Jesus comes for us, when he comes and gathers us. In the old hymn, "Come ye thankful people, come, raise a song of harvest home," there's this last verse. Let me read it to you. And maybe this will be a great way to end Thanksgiving Day for us. "Even so, Lord, quickly come, bring thy final harvest home. Gather thou thy people in, free from sorrow, free from sin. There forever purified, in thy presence to abide. Come with all thine angels, come, raise the glorious harvest home." May God help us and guide us on this Thanksgiving Day, and that is something to think about.